All right, everyone, welcome back. Get ready, because today we're doing a deep dive that's kind of like a business thriller,
Oh, intrigue already. I'm hooked.
So we've got this successful entrepreneur, we'll just call him John, to keep things simple.
Makes sense.
And his tech company is hitting a classic problem. Growing too fast, overpromising and underdelivering, the drill.
Yep. Taking on too much, stretching teams thin. Seen that happen a lot.
Exactly. And that's where it starts to get messy. Clients get frustrated, trust erodes. It's a recipe for trouble.
Absolutely. Those client relationships are everything.
But here's where it gets really interesting. John's smart, right? He brought in UnitiQ, this HR services company.
Smart move. Get some outside perspective.
To do more than just put out fires, though. He wanted to figure out the root cause of the problem.
Fascinating, because often these surface-level problems you mentioned, the missed deadlines, the unhappy clients,
Right.
they're just symptoms of a deeper misalignment, like culturally, within the company.
Okay, so that's what we're going to unpack today. What did UnitiQ uncover? How did they help John fix it? And most importantly, what can you learn from this whole situation?
It's like we're detectives, piecing together the clues.
I love that. We're not just observing a business whodunit. We're going to give you actionable insights, things you can use to build a stronger, more cohesive team, no matter what your role is.
Because trust me, this stuff applies to everyone, not just CEOs.
Absolutely. So picture this. John's company, ambitious, growing fast, landing big projects. Maybe a few too many at once, though, in hindsight.
Yeah, that classic overenthusiasm trap.
Deadlines start slipping, clients aren't happy, that initial excitement starts to fade. So John calls in UnitiQ.
Like the cavalry.
They start digging. And what's the first clue they find?
Well, one of the first things that jumped out was hiring, specifically how fast they were hiring. When you're in rapid growth mode, it's tempting to prioritize filling seats,
Oh, absolutely. Just get people in the door, worry about the rest later.
And that's the danger. If you're not taking time to assess whether these new hires actually fit with the company's culture.
You mean, like, do they share the company's values? Will they mesh with the existing team?
Exactly. You're basically setting yourself up for problems down the line. It's not just about skills on paper anymore.
It's about finding people who are actually excited to be part of the team, who believe in the company's mission.
Right. And there's research to back this up. UnitiQ actually found that companies with strong, positive cultures are more likely to deliver on their promises and exceed expectations. The employees feel that sense of belonging and purpose,
That makes so much sense. But here's where I get tripped up. How do we even define company culture? It's such a buzzword these days, but what does it actually look like in practice?
It's a great question, and it's at the heart of what was going wrong with John's company. Basically, company culture is like the shared set of values, beliefs, and behaviors that shape how people interact.
It's like the DNA of the company.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It affects everything. Communication styles, decision-making, how people approach problems. It's the invisible glue that holds everything together.
So in John's case, that glue was a little weak, right?
It was. And UnitiQ started to notice the cracks. Silos forming between departments, communication breaking down, lack of accountability. It wasn't that people were incompetent, they just weren't functioning as a cohesive unit.
They weren't rowing in the same direction, so to speak.
Perfect analogy. All this talent, ambition, but they were working against themselves because of this cultural disconnect. And that, my friend, is why building a strong company culture from day one is so vital.
It starts with those hiring decisions, doesn't it? Prioritizing cultural fit right alongside skills and experience.
It's foundational. Okay, so we've got the problem. Misaligned hiring leading to a weak culture. But how did UnitiQ actually help John fix it? Did they have some magic HR wand?
I wish. A quick fix would be nice, but it's usually not that simple.
Right. But what UnitiQ did was actually pretty cool. Instead of just giving generic advice, they really dug into John's company, its values, its goals. They helped him refine the entire recruitment process to attract candidates who were not only qualified, but also aligned with those values.
So they were finding people who were actually excited to be part of that specific company, not just looking for any job.
Exactly. They wanted people who were in sync with the company's unique journey. It wasn't just fixing a symptom, they were addressing the root cause.
They were helping him build a team that was actually united in purpose instead of just a bunch of individuals.
Now you're getting it. And there's another piece of this puzzle that really caught my eye in the research. They introduced John to this idea of evidence-based assessments as part of the hiring process.
Ooh, okay, that sounds a little intimidating, to be honest.
I know, right?
Okay.
But it's not as scary as it sounds. Think of it this way. Instead of relying on gut feelings or traditional interviews, which can be super subjective.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. Like one person's great candidate might be another person's no way.
Precisely. Evidence-based assessments use data-driven tools to give you a more objective picture of a candidate's potential.
So things like personality tests, skills assessments, that sort of thing.
You got it. And even more advanced tools, like simulations that put candidates in realistic work situations to see how they handle pressure. The idea is to gather as much information as possible to ensure those new hires are a good fit, not just for the role, but for the company as a whole.
Okay, I can see the value in that. But let's be real, wouldn't that take forever? Who has time for all those extra steps in hiring?
Valid point. Time is precious. But consider this, the time you invest upfront in these assessments
Could save you a lot of headaches later on.
Exactly. Think about those misaligned hires we talked about. They can cost a company a fortune in lost productivity, low morale, even employee turnover.
It's like that saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Exactly. And that's a big reason why UnitiQ is such a proponent of evidence-based assessments. They've seen firsthand how these tools can help companies build stronger, more successful teams.
This is making me want to learn more about the specific types of assessments they use. It sounds like a whole science.
It is, and it's what we'll be diving into next. We'll explore the different categories of assessments, how they're used, and most importantly, how you can apply these insights to your own career, even if you're not in charge of hiring. But we'll save that for part 2.
Okay, I'm ready to enter the detective's lab. Let's break down these evidence-based assessments.
I like where your head's at. And just like a good detective uses a bunch of different tools,
Right.
Evidence-based assessments come in all sorts of flavors,
Give me the rundown. What are some of the most common types that UnitiQ uses? I'm curious.
Well, they usually start with personality assessments,
Makes sense.
just to get a baseline understanding of a candidate's core traits, like how they approach teamwork, how they handle stress, their communication style, all that good stuff that feeds into cultural fit.
Yeah, those soft skills, right? Sometimes harder to gauge than technical skills.
Totally. And one of the most well-known assessments they use is called the Big Five.
Oh, I've heard of that one. It's the one with the 5 personality dimensions, right?
You got it. Openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism.
That's right. I always remember it as ocean.
Exactly. Ocean. Easy to remember. And by seeing where a candidate falls on each of those spectrums, you can get a good sense of whether they'll thrive in your company's unique environment.
So it's not about finding the perfect personality. It's about the right fit for the specific team and the company culture.
100%. It's about compatibility. And then they usually layer in cognitive ability tests. These measure things like problem solving, critical thinking, learning agility.
Learning agility, huh? Interesting.
Yeah, it's basically how quickly someone picks up new information and adapts to change.
Yeah.
You want people who can evolve, right?
Yeah,
Especially in the fast-paced tech world.
absolutely. The tech landscape changes so quickly, you need people who can keep up.
And that's what those tests help assess. Then, depending on the role, they might also throw in skills-based assessments.
Okay, so more like directly testing the skills needed for the job.
Exactly. Think of it like a coding test for a software engineer or a writing sample for a marketing role. You need to see if they can actually walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Right. So you've got personality, cognitive ability, skills. Are we missing anything?
We are. This is where it gets really cool, actually. UnitiQ often incorporates simulations into their assessments. Remember those detective shows where they recreate the crime scene to get a better understanding of what happened?
Oh yeah, I love those shows.
Simulations are kind of like that. They create these realistic work scenarios, and candidates have to show their skills, their problem-solving abilities, all in action. It's much more revealing than a traditional interview.
So instead of just telling you they're a good communicator, they have to actually prove it in a simulated environment. I like it.
Exactly. They're put to the test. And what's great is that these simulations can be tailored to specific job roles and company cultures. You're not just getting a generic assessment, it's very targeted.
Okay, now I'm really seeing the value in this whole assessment thing. But let me play devil's advocate for a second. What about those people who are great fits but just don't test well? Or maybe they get super nervous in a simulation and freeze up.
That's a really good point. And that's why UnitiQ is very clear that assessments should just be one piece of the puzzle.
Oh, okay, so not the be-all, end-all.
Right. They always combine these more objective measures with other methods, like interviews, reference checks. It's about getting a holistic view of the candidate.
So you're using data to inform your decisions, but not letting it completely override human judgment and intuition.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance. Plus, assessment tools are always evolving. New technologies, new research, they're constantly getting better.
It's a whole field unto itself.
It really is. Fascinating stuff. But you know what's even more exciting? How these insights can be applied beyond just hiring. Think about your own career, your own development.
Okay, now we're talking. Give me the good stuff. How can I use this?
So think about where you are now. Are you happy at work? Do the people around you share your values? Do you feel supported, challenged, like you can be yourself?
Honestly, I haven't really stopped to think about it like that.
And that's totally okay. The first step is awareness. Just noticing the dynamics, seeing if things are in alignment or if there are any disconnects.
What if I do see some disconnects, though? What if the culture isn't a good fit? I mean, I'm not the boss. I can't just change everything.
That's where self-awareness comes in.
Right.
Remember all those assessments we talked about? You can actually take a lot of them yourself.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah. There are tons of online platforms, career counseling services that offer them. You can get those insights into your own personality, strengths, weaknesses.
So I can use those same tools that companies use for hiring to help figure out my own career path.
Exactly. It's like leveling up your career planning, giving yourself a roadmap.
I love that. It's like taking control of my own journey. But it's not just about finding the perfect job for me, right? It's about being mindful of the culture I'm creating within my own team, even if I'm not the one calling the shots.
That is so important. You don't have to be the CEO to have a positive influence. Think about the small things you can do every day. Actively listening, offering help, celebrating wins. You can create a microculture of your own.
I like that. Be a culture influencer.
Exactly. And it all starts with those small, consistent actions.
So simple, but powerful. Okay, let's do a quick recap before we move on. We started with John and his company that was growing super fast but struggling to keep up. They were taking on too many projects, deadlines were slipping, clients were unhappy.
Classic growing pains, but as we saw, those were just symptoms of a bigger issue.
That underlying cultural misalignment.
Right, the company wasn't hiring with intention, so they ended up with talented people, but not necessarily a cohesive team.
Which led to silos, miscommunication, and all those missed deadlines we talked about.
And ultimately, that inability to deliver on their promises to clients.
And then, thank goodness for UnitiQ, right? They helped John turn things around.
They did. And not with a quick fix, but by addressing that root cause, the company culture.
Exactly. They helped John revamp his whole hiring process.
Making cultural fit a priority, not an afterthought.
And they introduced him to those evidence-based assessments.
Which, as we discussed, can give you so much valuable data about potential hires.
But here's the thing I keep coming back to. How can we use this information, us, the listeners, in our own careers?
That's what I love about this case study. It's so relevant to everyone, whether you're leading a team or just starting out.
So it's not just for CEOs and hiring managers.
Nope. The principles of cultural alignment and self-awareness, those apply to everyone.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give me some actionable takeaways.
Well, start by looking at your current work situation. Do you feel like you fit in? Do you share the same values as the people you work with?
Honestly, I've never really stopped to think about it that deeply.
And that's totally fine. The first step, IS just becoming aware of the dynamics at play. Notice how things feel. Do they feel right? Or is there a disconnect?
What if there is a disconnect, though? What if the culture just isn't a good fit for me? It's not like I can just wave a magic wand and change the whole company culture, especially if I'm not in a leadership role.
That's where understanding yourself comes in. Remember all those assessments we talked about? You can take a lot of those yourself.
Wait, for real? Like, I can take a personality test or something?
Absolutely. There are so many resources available these days. Online platforms, career counseling services. You can gain those same insights about your own personality, strengths, weaknesses, communication style.
So I can use those same tools that companies use to hire people to figure out my own WN career path. That's amazing.
It is. Think of it as investing in yourself, giving yourself a roadmap for success.
It's like taking control of my career destiny instead of just letting things happen to me.
Exactly. You become the architect of your career.
I love that. But it's not just about finding the perfect job for me, right? It's also about thinking about the culture I'm creating within my own team, even if I'm not the boss.
You hit the nail on the head. You can be a culture influencer from any position.
So things like active listening, offering help, celebrating wins, giving constructive feedback, those all contribute.
You got it. Those small actions can have a ripple effect, creating a more positive, supportive environment for everyone.
It's like being a mini CEO of my own little corner of the company.
I like that, the CEO of your own domain.
So even if I don't love the overall company culture, I can still make a difference in my own little world.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe those positive changes will inspire others.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired already. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to John and his story. It started out as a pretty big mess, right? A company on the verge of losing its clients' trust.
But it turned into an opportunity for growth for both John and the company.
Exactly. And that transformation didn't happen overnight. It started with being willing to look inward
To figure out what was really going on beneath the surface.
and to make small, intentional changes that added up to something much bigger.
It's a reminder that we all have the power to shape the cultures we're a part of.
So whether you're running a company, searching for a new job, or just trying to be a more effective and happy professional, remember, cultural alignment starts with self-awareness. Take the time to figure out what you value, what your strengths are, where you need to grow.
Find those environments where you can truly thrive, and don't be afraid to be a culture influencer, even in your own small way.
Until next time, keep diving deep, keep asking questions, and keep being an active participant in shaping the cultures that matter most to you. See you on the next deep dive.
If you like what we do, please like and subscribe to our channel. This is all for today. See you in the next episode.